The night was unusually quiet at the remote research outpost on the edge of the known universe. The sky above the barren planet was filled with countless stars, distant suns twinkling faintly against the black void. The team of scientists had spent months studying the unusual energy patterns in this sector, scanning for signs of life or strange cosmic activity. Nothing they had seen before prepared them for what was about to happen. It began as a faint disturbance, a signal so weak it barely registered on their instruments. At first, the technicians thought it was interference from solar flares or a glitch in the equipment. But as the minutes passed, the faint pattern began to repeat itself, forming a rhythm that was unmistakably artificial. It was a signal, and not one that came from any source they recognized, Dr. Elias Warner. The lead scientist leaned over the console, eyes narrowing as he examined the readouts. He had spent his life studying space phenomena, decoding transmissions, and trying to make sense of signals from distant stars. This one was different. The structure was chaotic, yet intentional, almost like a frantic plea, coded in patterns that defied conventional understanding. The more the team analyzed it, the more apparent it became that this was a message from an intelligent being, or perhaps a civilization in grave danger. Every second the signal continued, its urgency seemed to grow, echoing across the void like a cry for help that had traveled light years to reach them. The feeling in the room was tense, almost electric. Scientists and engineers exchanged anxious glances, realizing that what they were witnessing could be the first direct contact with a truly alien civilization. As the night deepened, the team worked tirelessly, trying to decipher the content. The signal was complex, layered with multiple frequencies and strange sequences that didn't correspond to any known language or code. It wasn't long before Dr. Warner called in cryptographers from other facilities across the solar system. Messages were relayed back and forth, experts working in shifts, piecing together fragments of the transmission like a cosmic puzzle. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. The words and tones suggested fear, panic, and desperation. This wasn't a routine communication or a peaceful attempt at contact. This was a call for urgent help. The aliens, whoever they were facing an overwhelming threat. A force so powerful that their entire civilization was at risk of annihilation. The urgency in the signal was almost palpable. Images and data packets embedded in the transmission hinted at massive destruction, entire cities being engulfed in fire or obliterated by unseen forces. The research team could only watch in awe and horror as the fragments revealed glimpses of a world under siege. The alien architecture was unlike anything they had imagined, towering structures that seemed organic in design, streets and networks that radiated with energy, and beings that moved with intelligence and purpose. Yet the chaos in the transmission was clear. Something monstrous was attacking, and the aliens were unprepared. The scientists could sense the fear radiating through the patterns, a silent scream that transcended language and spoke directly to their empathy. Dr. Warner stood at the window of the observation deck, looking up at the star-filled sky, trying to imagine the scene unfolding light years away. He thought about how small and fragile humanity seemed in comparison to the vastness of space, yet how capable of action and response they could be. The distress signal carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. Each pulse of the transmission seemed to demand attention, pressing upon the minds of those who listened. It was a reminder that life in the universe could be beautiful, strange, and terrifying all at once. The aliens were reaching out across the void, relying on the hope that someone, somewhere, would hear them and act. Despite the anxiety in the control room, there was also a sense of wonder. The team had dreamed of discovering alien life, imagining peaceful encounters or scientific breakthroughs. But reality was far more intense and sobering. The signal painted a picture of a universe where survival was not guaranteed, where civilizations could face threats beyond imagination. The aliens' intelligence and culture were evident even in the chaos. They had crafted a sophisticated method to send out a warning across unimaginable distances. That level of thought and foresight was staggering. Yet, the fear embedded in the message made it clear that their technology alone was not enough to save them. They needed help, and they needed it now. As hours passed, the signal intensified. The patterns became more coherent, almost as if the aliens were guiding the humans to understand their plight. Images began to form more clearly. Massive, dark vessels descending on sprawling cities, energy beams tearing through defensive barriers, and the alien inhabitants fleeing in panic. The scientists could barely comprehend the scale of the devastation. It was unlike any battle humans had known or imagined. The attackers were relentless, overwhelming, and precise. The team speculated about what kind of force could possess such power. The term Deathworlders was whispered among them, a name arising from fragments in the transmission, though its exact meaning remained unclear. Whatever these beings were, they were the embodiment of destruction, leaving nothing in their path. Despite the fear and uncertainty, the team felt a profound sense of responsibility. They were the first humans to witness this plea for help, the first to understand that an intelligent species was in immediate danger. The idea that they could simply turn away was unthinkable. Debates began quietly among the scientists. How could they respond? What resources did they have? Could humanity even reach this distant planet in time? The questions were urgent, but answers were not yet clear. All they could do was continue analyzing the signal, trying to extract more information about the aliens' location, the nature of the threat, and what kind of assistance might be possible late into the night. Fatigue weighed heavily on the team, but no one dared leave their posts. The signal seemed almost alive, pulsing with desperation, urging them not to falter. The researchers realized that time was critical. The alien situation could be worsening by the minute, and every second of delay could cost lives. Dr. Warner sent preliminary reports to the nearest interstellar command centers, urging immediate attention. He knew that even if humanity acted, there was no guarantee they could reach the planet in time, that their intervention would be enough. Yet the signal demanded action, and humanity's conscience would not allow inaction. As dawn approached, the research outpost was transformed. The quiet, isolated facility had become the focal point of an interstellar crisis. The scientists had uncovered not just a new civilization, but a civilization fighting for survival against an unimaginable enemy. The signal, though terrifying, was also a bridge, a connection across light years, showing that intelligent life in the universe could reach out for help. Even in the darkest moments, Dr. Warner and his team understood that this night would mark a turning point. Humanity had been called to witness the fragility and courage of another species, and the choice to respond would define not just this encounter, but the very character of humanity in the cosmos. By the time the first light of the planet's twin suns crept across the barren landscape outside, the team had made a plan. They would continue decoding the message, mapping the alien world, and preparing to share their findings with Earth. Each pulse of the signal reminded them of the stakes, the urgency, and the hope embedded in the alien cry for help. The story of this night, of the first contact with a civilization on the brink of annihilation, was just beginning. Humanity was about to be drawn into a struggle far larger than anything they had imagined. And the scientists knew that everything depended on listening carefully, understanding fully, and acting decisively. The signal, faint but insistent, had bridged an impossible distance, and the universe had suddenly become a place where heroes, choices, and courage would matter more than ever. The moment the scientists at the distant outpost confirmed the distress signal was genuine. News of it traveled at the fastest speeds possible across human networks. Within hours, Earth was buzzing with tension, excitement, and uncertainty. Major space agencies, military commands, and government leaders were all brought into emergency discussions. The idea that humanity had received a plea for help from an alien civilization was almost unbelievable. Yet the data, the patterns, and the sheer intensity of the signal left no room for doubt. The aliens were real, they were intelligent, and they were in immediate danger. For the first time, humanity faced a choice that could define its role in the cosmos: intervene, or stay safely at home and watch as another civilization faced destruction in the grand halls of interstellar command. Debates raged late into the night. World leaders, military generals, scientists, and diplomats argued over every possible scenario. Some were cautious, fearing that responding could provoke the mysterious attackers. These Deathworlders, as preliminary analyses suggested, were powerful beyond anything humans had faced. Their capabilities were unknown, and the threat they posed could reach Earth itself if underestimated. Other voices were more determined. They argued that a species in desperate need could not be ignored, that humanity had the technology, the intelligence, and the moral responsibility to act. The room was filled with tension, as every decision carried enormous consequences. The question was not simply whether to send help, but whether humanity could survive the consequences of doing so. Amidst the debates, the scientific community worked feverishly to understand the alien civilization. Researchers pored over every fragment of the signal, every image and transmission, trying to learn about their technology, society, and vulnerabilities. The aliens seemed advanced, yet not enough to defend themselves against the overwhelming force that threatened them. Their cities were vast and complex, their energy systems sophisticated, and their means of communication across their planet impressive. The scientists realized that even if humans sent aid, they needed to understand the aliens' technology to coordinate effectively. Time was critical, and every insight could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. The sense of urgency in the labs and command centers was palpable, with researchers and engineers working around the clock, driven by both curiosity and compassion. As the decision-making continued, plans for a response began to take shape. Humanity's leaders had to assemble a fleet capable of traveling light years, quickly and equipped with weapons and technology sufficient to counter the unknown power of the Deathworlders. Ships were readied, engines tuned for maximum speed, and defensive systems upgraded with the latest technology. Pilots, commanders, and engineers were briefed, as knowing that they were stepping into a situation no human had ever faced before. Some were exhilarated by the opportunity, imagining themselves as the first humans to intervene in an interstellar crisis. Others were terrified, fully aware that failure could mean not just death for themselves, but the complete destruction of an alien civilization. Despite the fear, everyone understood that hesitation was not an option. The ethical dimension of the situation weighed heavily on the decision-makers. Human history was filled with examples of nations ignoring the suffering of others until it was too late, and many leaders were determined not to repeat those mistakes on a cosmic scale. The alien signal had reached out across impossible distances, relying on the hope that someone would hear and respond. Humanity could not simply turn its back. At the same time, there was no clear plan for how to deal with the Deathworlders. They had no intelligence reports, no prior encounters, no reliable information about their strength or tactics. It was a gamble of unprecedented scale. Some generals argued for restraint, advocating reconnaissance missions first, while diplomats pushed for immediate assistance to prevent total destruction. Every proposal was debated, dissected, and analyzed. And still the pressure to act grew with each passing hour. Meanwhile, back at the research outpost, Dr. Warner and his team continued decoding the transmission in greater detail. They discovered more about the aliens' way of life, their values, and their desperate situation. The aliens were not merely passive victims. They had fought valiantly, using every defensive measure available, but they were overwhelmed. Cities that had once glimmered with life were being reduced to rubble. The images were harrowing, vast landscapes scorched by unknown weapons, structures crumbling under immense energy blasts, and countless beings fleeing for survival. The scientists realized that the aliens were sending not just words, but a visual account of their suffering, hoping to spur humanity into action. Each new data packet reinforced the gravity of the situation. On Earth, the decision finally came down to a combination of morality and strategy. Humanity would respond. A fleet would be sent, combining the fastest ships, the most advanced weaponry, and teams of scientists and diplomats. Plans were made for long-range support with supplies, medical aid, communication equipment prepared for an uncertain and potentially hostile environment. Commanders worked tirelessly to anticipate the Deathworlders' tactics, devising strategies that relied on speed, surprise, and technological superiority. Meanwhile, scientists continued to refine their understanding of the alien culture. searching for weaknesses and potential points of cooperation. It was a monumental effort, unprecedented in human history, uniting nations and disciplines in a single, shared purpose. The fleet's launch was a spectacle of human achievement and determination. Ships that had been sitting in orbit for years were activated, engines roaring to life, weapons systems online, and navigation computers calculating courses to reach the alien planet as quickly as possible. Pilots and crew were briefed repeatedly, rehearsing every scenario from routine engagement to total disaster. The mood was tense but resolute. Everyone involved understood the stakes. The survival of an entire civilization rested on their success, and humanity itself would be tested in ways it had never experienced before. During the fleet's journey, humans continued to receive fragmented signals from the alien world. Each transmission revealed more of the ongoing devastation, showing how the Deathworlders were methodical and overwhelming in their assault. Entire regions were being destroyed in minutes, and the alien population was dwindling rapidly. These updates fueled determination among the humans. They were no longer observing a distant crisis. They were participants in it, preparing to step into the conflict to tip the balance. The emotional impact of seeing the suffering, even from millions of light years away, galvanized the fleet. The crew knew that failure was not an option, and that every decision could have monumental consequences. As the fleet approached the alien system, humanity's preparation reached its peak. Communications with the alien survivors became a top priority, using the decoded signal to establish a line of coordination. Scientists and strategists worked together to understand the aliens' remaining defenses and to plan ways to reinforce them. The alien architecture and technology, once unfamiliar, were being mapped and analyzed, allowing humans to integrate their systems in a way that maximized efficiency. Trust had to be built quickly, despite vast differences in culture and physiology. The message was clear. Humanity was coming, not as conquerors, but as allies. In the midst of all this, the weight of responsibility was felt personally by every individual in the operation. Pilots and soldiers thought of the alien faces glimpsed in the transmissions, of entire families fleeing destruction, and of cities reduced to ruins. Scientists considered the countless discoveries they might never see, lives extinguished before their knowledge could grow. Leaders contemplated the political, ethical, and military implications of every maneuver. Yet despite the fear, uncertainty, and tension, there was hope. Humanity was stepping into a role larger than itself, acting as a protector for a species it had never met. The act of responding, of choosing courage over indifference, was a defining moment, a moment that would echo in the annals of human history. By the time the fleet entered the outer orbit of the alien system, every human involved felt the profound reality of what lay ahead. The aliens' world, partially visible through telescopic observation, showed signs of devastation, but also resilience. Fires burned, structures lay in ruins, and scattered populations struggled to survive. Yet the determination of the survivors was evident. They had not surrendered. Humanity's arrival was their lifeline. Every crew member aboard, the fleet understood that their actions in the coming hours and days could determine the fate of countless lives. The first step had been taken. Humanity had chosen to respond, to act, and to enter a conflict that would challenge everything it knew about courage, strategy, and survival. In the quiet moments before the first engagement, Dr. Warner reflected on the journey from receiving the first faint signal to this pivotal moment. The night at the remote outpost, when the aliens' plea first reached human ears, now seemed both distant and immediate. Humanity had been called to witness suffering, to make decisions that no one could have imagined decades before. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and unknown. Yet there was no turning back. The decision to act had been made, and with it came hope, fear, responsibility, and an unshakable determination to stand with those who had reached out across the stars. Asterisk. The journey through space had been long and tense. Humanity's fleet, a marvel of engineering and coordination, moved steadily through the darkness, guided by the coordinates decoded from the alien distress signal. Every ship was on high alert, crews scanning the void for any sign of the enemy. For days they had traveled through regions of space that were largely unexplored, each moment filled with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The scientists and strategists aboard the flagship had been continuously analyzing the alien transmissions, trying to predict what awaited them. What they discovered as they approached the system sent shivers down everyone's spine. The Deathworlders had already begun their assault in full, and the scale of their destruction was far greater than anyone had imagined. Reports from long-range reconnaissance drones painted a horrifying picture. Entire cities had been leveled, their once proud spires and domes reduced to rubble. Energy shields that the aliens had built to protect their population were torn apart with devastating precision. The Deathworlders moved with ruthless efficiency, attacking without warning, showing no hesitation or mercy. The humans aboard the fleet could see that these invaders were unlike any adversary they had faced before. They were intelligent, methodical, and terrifyingly powerful. Possessing weapons and technologies beyond human understanding, every pulse of energy, every blast from the Deathworlder ships, was a reminder of the immense challenge humanity was about to face. As the fleet drew closer to the alien world, the tension on board became almost unbearable. Commanders held briefings multiple times a day, updating crew members on the latest intelligence and adjusting strategies to adapt to what they were learning. The situation was complicated by the need to integrate human technology with the remaining alien systems. Scientists worked feverishly to understand how the aliens' energy grids, communication networks, and defensive weapons could be used to enhance humanity's own capabilities. It was a delicate balance. Too much interference could destabilize what little defense the aliens had left, but careful coordination could provide the edge needed to survive the coming confrontation. The fleet's pilots trained relentlessly. Running simulations of potential combat scenarios, they studied every possible maneuver, practiced defensive and offensive strategies, and prepared for the worst. Everyone understood that the Deathworlders were not just a force to be fought, but a force that could adapt and counter human tactics. The simulations, while sophisticated, could only approximate the reality awaiting them. The true strength and intelligence of the Deathworlders remained a mystery, and that uncertainty weighed heavily on every mind. Yet amid the fear there was also a determination. Humanity had chosen to act, and retreat was not an option. Back on the observation decks of the flagship, Dr. Warner and his team monitored the alien planet as closely as possible. Even through distant scans, the scale of devastation was staggering. Entire regions that had once been bustling centers of alien life were now silent and smoldering. Massive craters, torn apart by energy weapons, scarred the landscape. Survivors moved in small, desperate groups, seeking shelter wherever it could be found. The aliens had fought valiantly, but their technology alone had proven insufficient against the Deathworlders' relentless assault. Each new data stream reinforced the urgent need for human intervention. The fleet was not arriving to observe or study, it was arriving to save lives. As the humans neared the outer orbit of the alien system, the first encounters with the Deathworlders began. Scouts and drones reported large enemy vessels moving in formation, their sheer size and firepower overwhelming. The Deathworlder ships were designed for destruction, with energy weapons capable of leveling cities in seconds. Their movements were coordinated and precise, suggesting intelligence and tactical skill far beyond what the humans had previously encountered. It became clear that any approach to the planet would be met with immediate resistance. The fleet's commanders began devising strategies to minimize losses while maximizing support for the alien survivors. Every calculation, every maneuver, was made with the knowledge that failure could result in the complete extinction of the alien civilization. The aliens themselves, although battered and fearful, displayed remarkable courage. Small groups of defenders continued to resist the Deathworlders, using every remaining weapon and defensive system at their disposal. They had clearly not given up, and their determination inspired the humans. The fleet's leaders coordinated closely with the alien command units, using the decoded transmissions to anticipate where attacks were most urgent. Communication was challenging due to differences in language, timing, and technology, But the will to survive and cooperate bridged the gaps. Humans and aliens became partners in a desperate struggle, each side relying on the other's strengths to endure the onslaught. The first major engagement occurred on a distant continent, one of the few regions where the alien population still maintained a semblance of organization. The Deathworlders attacked with overwhelming force, deploying massive war machines and energy beams that tore through defensive lines. The humans, moving quickly to reinforce the alien forces, coordinated attacks from orbit, striking at key enemy vessels while protecting civilians as best they could. The battle was intense, chaotic, and terrifying. Explosions lit up the alien skies, and debris rained down on the fleeing population. Every second was a test of skill, courage, and determination. The humans realized quickly that the Deathworlders were adaptive, learning from each encounter and altering their tactics to counter human strategies. It was a deadly game of intelligence versus raw power, and the margin for error was vanishingly small. Amid the chaos, moments of humanity shone through. Human crews rescued alien survivors trapped in collapsing buildings, provided medical aid under fire, and coordinated evacuations to safer regions. Scientists worked alongside alien engineers, repairing damaged energy grids and redirecting power to defensive systems. The shared experience of fear, courage, and determination forged bonds between species, creating an unspoken alliance strengthened by necessity. Each life saved was a small victory against the seemingly unstoppable force of the Deathworlders. These acts of bravery and compassion reminded the humans why they had chosen to intervene. Even in the face of overwhelming danger, as battles continued across multiple fronts, the humans gained a better understanding of the Deathworlders' capabilities. Their ships were heavily armored, fast, and equipped with devastating weaponry. Their strategy was relentless. They did not simply attack. They sought to eliminate any chance of organized resistance. The Deathworlders' intelligence was evident in their precision strikes, predicting defensive movements and countering them with devastating efficiency. Humanity had never faced an enemy like this, and the realization was both sobering and motivating. The fleet's commanders adapted continuously, combining human ingenuity with the aliens' remaining resources to create strategies capable of holding back the tide of destruction. The human fleet also faced internal challenges. Fatigue, fear, and the constant stress of combat tested the crew's resilience. Communication systems were pushed to their limits, and coordination with alien forces required patience and ingenuity. Yet every setback was met with determination, every failure with renewed effort. Humanity's ability to adapt, learn, and cooperate under pressure became its greatest strength. Each day they pushed closer to the alien cities, shielding survivors, repelling attacks, and gradually establishing a foothold in the conflict. The sense of urgency never faded, every moment counted, and the fate of an entire species rested on their success. By the time the fleet had reached the inner orbit of the alien world, the full scale of the Deathworlders' assault became clear. Large swaths of the planet had been destroyed, with entire continents scarred by energy blasts. The remaining aliens were concentrated in small pockets of resistance, struggling to survive under constant attack. Humans and aliens now worked in unison, using a combination of orbital bombardments, ground support, and emergency evacuations to stabilize the situation. It was a battle of attrition, strategy, and endurance, with no room for hesitation. Each victory was hard-won, each setback a painful reminder of the enemy's power. As night fell on the alien world, temporary quiet settled over certain regions. Fires still burned, damaged structures smoldered, and survivors huddled in makeshift shelters. The humans aboard the fleet took stock of their progress, knowing that the worst of the conflict was not over. The Deathworlders were adaptive and relentless, and any complacency could lead to disaster. Yet amid the destruction, hope remained. Humanity had arrived, bringing skills, technology, and determination that could turn the tide. The aliens, battered but not defeated, drew courage from the humans' presence. A fragile alliance had been formed, and for the first time, It seemed possible that the Deathworlders could be resisted in the quiet moments between battles. Dr. Warner and his team reflected on how far they had come since the first faint signal. From that distant outpost to the edge of an alien civilization under siege, humanity had been drawn into a conflict far beyond anything imagined. The horrors they had witnessed were sobering, yet the courage, resilience, and ingenuity displayed by both humans and aliens provided hope. They knew the challenges ahead would be even greater. But the lessons learned during these first encounters, coordination, adaptation, and the power of cooperation would prove essential in the struggle to come. The stage was set for the next phase of the battle, where strategy, courage, and determination would be tested to their limits, and where the true nature of the Deathworlders' threat would become undeniable. The humans and the aliens had now entered the most critical stage of the conflict. The Deathworlders were everywhere, a relentless assault spreading destruction across the planet like an unstoppable storm. From orbit, the humans could see the devastation clearly, once proud cities reduced to ash, forests set ablaze, and entire continents scarred by energy blasts. The sheer scale of the devastation was staggering, and every member of the fleet understood the magnitude of the challenge ahead. For the aliens, hope had almost vanished. But the arrival of humanity had rekindled a spark of resistance that refused to be extinguished. The two civilizations, so different in every way, now faced a common enemy, and the fight for survival had begun in earnest. The first encounters on the ground were chaotic and intense. Human soldiers, equipped with advanced weaponry, landed in devastated regions where small groups of alien survivors clung desperately to life. The aliens were initially wary, uncertain whether these newcomers were friends or foes, but the humans quickly demonstrated their intentions. They moved with precision and purpose, protecting civilians, neutralizing threats, and coordinating attacks with the remaining alien forces. It was a delicate balance. One wrong move could cause panic or endanger lives. Yet slowly, trust began to form. The aliens, exhausted but determined, followed the humans' lead, lending their knowledge of the terrain, defensive systems, and remaining weapons to the combined effort. Together, they formed a partnership forged in desperation, a fragile alliance that could withstand the immense force of the Deathworlders. Battles raged across the planet. The Deathworlders struck with relentless efficiency, targeting settlements, energy grids, and defensive positions with devastating accuracy. Their war machines were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Massive, armored constructs capable of destroying buildings with a single strike, energy beams that could vaporize groups of soldiers in seconds, and aerial units that patrolled the skies with terrifying intelligence. Every encounter tested the humans' ingenuity, courage, and tactical planning. They had to adapt constantly, using every advantage available, including knowledge gained from the alien survivors. Defensive positions were fortified, evacuation routes coordinated, and precision strikes launched from orbit to support ground forces. Each engagement was exhausting and dangerous, yet humanity's presence gave the aliens a fighting chance they had not had before. As the battles escalated, human commanders realized that conventional strategies alone would not suffice. The Deathworlders were not only powerful, but highly intelligent, capable of anticipating attacks and adapting their methods. Every plan had to be dynamic, flexible, and executed with precision. Orbital bombardments had to be coordinated with ground movements, and evacuation efforts timed perfectly to minimize casualties. Communication networks had to remain intact, despite constant interference from enemy attacks. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to maintain and enhance both human and alien systems, ensuring that the combined forces could operate effectively. It was a constant struggle against both the enemy and the limitations of their own resources. Amid the chaos, moments of extraordinary bravery occurred on both sides. Human soldiers rescued aliens trapped in collapsing buildings, navigated firestorms to reach survivors, and risked their lives under direct fire to protect civilians. Alien defenders, despite exhaustion and fear, coordinated with humans to set traps, guide reinforcements, and maintain defensive positions. Each act of courage, each life saved, became a small victory in the overwhelming tide of destruction. The human presence was a beacon of hope, proving to the aliens that they were not alone and that survival was still possible. Every person, human and alien alike, understood the stakes. The fate of an entire species depended on their actions. The Deathworlders, recognizing the growing resistance, intensified their attacks. They adapted quickly to human tactics, employing new weapons, targeting supply lines, and attempting to isolate pockets of survivors. The humans responded in kind, using strategy, technology, and coordination to counter these moves. Battles became more complex, involving multiple fronts and requiring constant communication between orbital forces, ground teams, and alien defenders. Every victory was hard-won, every setback a harsh reminder of the enemy's power. The humans realized that endurance, intelligence, collaboration were as important as weapons and firepower. In the midst of the fighting, the human fleet continued to provide crucial support from orbit. Advanced targeting systems allowed precision strikes on Deathworlder war machines, while energy shields protected key settlements from annihilation. Supplies, medical aid, and reinforcements were delivered rapidly to areas under threat, keeping the remaining alien population alive and capable of fighting. Scientists and engineers worked on adapting alien technologies to human systems, enhancing defenses and creating innovative solutions to counter the enemy. Every success, no matter how small, strengthened the alliance and boosted morale among both humans and aliens. The human and alien forces developed new strategies as the battle unfolded. Guerrilla tactics were combined with large-scale assaults, using knowledge of the terrain and remaining defensive networks to outmaneuver the Deathworlders. Mobile units, both human and alien, struck swiftly at weak points before retreating to safety. Coordinated attacks from orbit and ground forces disrupted enemy supply lines, slowing the advance of the Deathworlders. Each plan was carefully calculated, taking into account the enemy's intelligence and adaptability. The complexity of the operations demonstrated humanity's capacity for innovation under pressure, and the aliens' resilience despite overwhelming odds amid the violence. The humans also worked to protect the cultural and historical remnants of the alien civilization. Ancient structures, libraries, and archives were evacuated or shielded wherever possible, preserving knowledge and heritage that could have been lost forever. For the aliens, this gesture was deeply meaningful, a reminder that humanity's intervention was not merely military but also an act of respect and compassion. Bonds between the two species strengthened as they recognized the shared goal: survival and the protection of life, culture, and civilization. These shared efforts created a sense of unity that was critical in the face of such relentless aggression. As the days passed, the Deathworlders grew more aggressive, launching coordinated attacks designed to break the resistance entirely. The humans and aliens were pushed to their limits, facing exhaustion, equipment failures, and constant danger. Yet they adapted, learning from each encounter, refining strategies, and discovering vulnerabilities in the enemy's approach. Small victories accumulated, boosting morale and providing hope that the tide of the conflict could be turned. The alliance between humans and aliens became a finely tuned force, combining knowledge, skill, and courage in a way neither species could achieve alone. By the midpoint of the campaign, the humans had established key defensive positions in major population centers. The aliens, inspired by humanity's presence, contributed every resource and piece of knowledge they had remaining. Coordinated strikes from orbital forces destroyed several major enemy war machines, while ground forces reclaimed critical infrastructure. These victories were not without cost. Many lives were lost, and entire regions remained in ruins, but they demonstrated that the Deathworlders were not invincible. The collaboration between humans and aliens was beginning to turn the tide, showing that even the most overwhelming force could be resisted with intelligence, courage, and cooperation. Dr. Warner and his team worked tirelessly to monitor the alien population, document the progress of the conflict, and provide guidance to both human and alien forces. They observed the resilience, ingenuity, and bravery displayed by both sides. noting how desperation had forged a formidable alliance capable of standing against a seemingly unstoppable enemy. Every successful evacuation, every defeated enemy unit, reinforced the belief that survival was possible. Yet the enormity of the challenge remained ever present, reminding everyone that the coming days would be even more critical. As the conflict reached its peak, the humans coordinated a massive counteroffensive designed to halt the Deathworlders' advance permanently. Orbital bombardments were synchronized with ground assaults. Rescue operations ensured civilians remained safe, and precision strikes targeted the enemy's command and supply structures. Alien defenders provided critical intelligence, guiding human forces to weak points and advising on the use of remaining defensive technologies. The plan was audacious, high-risk, and required perfect execution. Failure could mean total annihilation, but success would mark the beginning of liberation for the alien world. The counteroffensive began with coordinated strikes across multiple regions simultaneously. Deathworlder war machines were disabled, supply lines disrupted, and critical defensive positions reinforced. The humans and aliens fought with unmatched intensity, relying on skill, courage, and strategy to hold the line and push the enemy back. Explosions rocked the landscape, energy beams illuminated the skies, and both sides demonstrated the ferocity of their commitment to survival. Every engagement was decisive, every maneuver critical, and every individual, human and alien alike, understood the stakes. As the day drew to a close, the first real signs of progress became visible. The Deathworlders, though still dangerous and adaptive, began to retreat in isolated areas. The coordinated efforts of humans and aliens had forced the enemy to adjust their strategy, slowing their advance and buying precious time for survivors. Fires continued to burn, and damage remained widespread, but hope had returned to the beleaguered population. The Alliance had proven that even the most powerful and intelligent adversary could be challenged and resisted. Humanity's presence, courage, and ingenuity had become a decisive factor in the survival of the alien civilization. In the quiet moments between battles, humans and aliens alike reflected on the enormity of what they had accomplished. They had faced near certain annihilation, fought against a relentless and overwhelming force, and survived to see the first glimmers of hope. The partnership between species, forged in desperation and strengthened by courage, had turned the tide of the conflict. Yet everyone knew that the battle was not yet over, and that vigilance, strategy, and determination would be required in the days to come. The shared experience of struggle, sacrifice, and triumph had created a bond that transcended species, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, unity and courage could prevail. After days of relentless fighting, humanity and the alien survivors had managed to slow the Deathworlders' advance and reclaim key regions of the planet. Yet the danger remained palpable. The Deathworlders were still a terrifying force, adaptive and intelligent, and the humans knew they could not allow the enemy to regroup and strike again. Every crew member, pilot, soldier, and scientist understood that the final battles would determine not only the fate of the alien civilization, but also the legacy of humanity's intervention. There was no margin for error, and the tension across both fleets and ground forces was almost unbearable. Still, hope burned brighter than fear, as both species recognized that victory, though costly, was now within reach. In the early hours of the operation, the humans coordinated with alien commanders to launch a decisive counterattack on the Deathworlders' remaining forces. Intelligence gathered from previous battles revealed vulnerabilities in the enemy's formations and supply lines. Scientists analyzed energy patterns, weapon outputs, and movement strategies, providing critical insights that allowed the fleets to plan precise strikes. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians, merging technologies to create defensive systems and weapons that maximized the strengths of both civilizations. Every detail was scrutinized, every maneuver rehearsed. The stakes had never been higher, and every decision could mean the difference between total annihilation and survival. As the counteroffensive began, the Deathworlders realized they faced a coalition far more organized and determined than they had expected. Human and alien forces struck simultaneously from multiple directions, targeting enemy supply chains, command hubs, and key war machines. The Deathworlders responded with predictable ferocity, deploying massive warships and energy weapons to counter every move. Yet, for the first time, the humans saw cracks in the enemy's previously flawless strategy. Coordinated strikes disrupted their formations, and ambushes executed by agile human and alien units inflicted heavy losses. Each success bolstered morale, both on the ground and aboard the fleet. The survivors realized that the tide was turning, and that the Deathworlders could indeed be resisted. On the surface of the planet, human and alien ground forces worked seamlessly together. Evacuated civilians moved to safe zones while teams of soldiers and engineers reinforced defensive positions. The humans' advanced tactics complemented the aliens' intimate knowledge of the terrain, creating a synergy that allowed them to outmaneuver the Deathworlders. Explosions lit up the skies. Energy beams scorched the earth. Every battle was fought with determination, intelligence, and precision. Even in the chaos, moments of humanity and courage shone through, soldiers risking their lives to save civilians, scientists working under fire to maintain communications and power systems, and alien fighters holding their ground to protect their people. These acts, small yet significant, became symbols of hope amid devastation. The Deathworlders, realizing the humans and aliens were no longer passive prey, escalated their attacks. They deployed larger war machines, more precise energy weapons, and even attempted coordinated strikes on multiple fronts. Their intelligence allowed them to anticipate some movements, forcing the human commanders to constantly adapt. Each new assault tested the fleet's coordination and the resilience of the survivors. Yet the humans, drawing on lessons from earlier battles, countered with innovation. Drones disrupted enemy targeting systems. Orbital strikes destroyed key war machines, and agile ground units executed maneuvers that left the Deathworlders struggling to respond effectively. The enemy's relentlessness only strengthened the resolve of the humans and their alien allies. Amid this struggle, the alliance deepened. Humans and aliens shared strategies, medical knowledge, and technological innovations. Alien engineers, once hesitant to rely on human systems, began integrating them into their defenses. Human soldiers learned to anticipate alien tactics and adapted quickly to local conditions. Together, they created a unified force capable of confronting the Deathworlders directly. Even in the heat of battle, there were moments of compassion and courage that defined the human-alien alliance. Civilians rescued from collapsing cities were treated with care. Wounded soldiers and aliens received medical aid under fire, and communities that had nearly been destroyed were rebuilt with remarkable speed and ingenuity. The turning point of the conflict came when human commanders identified the central hub of the Deathworlders' operations. From this hub, the enemy coordinated attacks across the planet, monitored defenses, and managed supply lines. Destroying it would cripple the Deathworlders' ability to wage war. The plan was audacious, a combined strike from orbit and ground forces, coordinated to hit the hub simultaneously from multiple angles. Human and alien units prepared with meticulous care, synchronizing every step and rehearsing every maneuver. The stakes could not have been higher. Failure would mean the collapse of the resistance, and potentially the extinction of the alien civilization. Yet, with determination and courage, the forces readied themselves for the decisive engagement. When the operation began, the battlefield became a maelstrom of strategy, courage, and destruction. Human orbital units fired precision strikes that neutralized the Deathworlders' outer defenses. Ground forces moved swiftly, disabling key energy generators and command structures while avoiding traps and ambushes. Alien fighters, drawing on centuries of knowledge of their own planet, guided the humans through hidden paths and protective zones. The Deathworlders responded with overwhelming firepower, but the coordinated attack proved too much. Systems failed, war machines were destroyed, and communication lines within the enemy forces collapsed. Every second counted, every action mattered, and the cooperation between humans and aliens became the decisive factor in the battle. As the day turned to night, the central hub of the Deathworlders was finally neutralized. Explosions rocked the enemy stronghold, and energy beams flared as the final war machines fell. The retreat of the Deathworlders began, disorganized and confused. Humanity and the aliens pressed their advantage carefully, ensuring that the enemy could not regroup. Across the planet, survivors emerged from hiding, witnessing the first signs of liberation. Fires burned less fiercely, communication systems slowly came back online, and the once devastated landscape showed signs of recovery. For the first time in weeks, hope spread among the survivors. They had survived the impossible, and the Deathworlders had been forced to retreat in the aftermath. Human crews assisted in rescue and reconstruction. Emergency medical teams treated the wounded, engineers repaired damaged infrastructure, and pilots delivered supplies to the most affected regions. The aliens, grateful and inspired by humanity's intervention, began rebuilding their society with renewed determination. Entire communities, once on the brink of annihilation, were brought back from the edge of extinction. Cultural sites, archives, and historical monuments that had survived were restored or protected, ensuring that the knowledge and traditions of the alien civilization would endure. The cooperation between humans and aliens had created a foundation not only for survival, but also for a lasting alliance. The experience left a profound impact on everyone involved. Humans had witnessed firsthand the fragility and resilience of life beyond their own planet. They had faced a force of unimaginable power and through courage, strategy, and cooperation had emerged victorious. The aliens, who had initially sent a desperate plea for help, now had a reason to believe in the power of alliance, in the capacity for hope, and in the strength that can emerge from collaboration across species. The shared experience of survival, battle, and reconstruction forged bonds that transcended the differences between them, creating a sense of unity that would last far beyond the immediate crisis as the fleets prepared to return. Dr. Warner reflected on the journey from the first faint signal to the current moment. Humanity had been called to witness and intervene in a struggle that few could have imagined. The courage of individuals, the ingenuity of commanders, the determination of soldiers, and the resilience of alien survivors had combined to create a story of survival against overwhelming odds. The lessons learned, the importance of cooperation, courage, adaptability, and empathy would guide humanity in future encounters with the unknown. This conflict had changed humanity forever, instilling a deeper understanding of the responsibilities and potential of life in the universe. News of the victory spread across human networks. Governments, citizens, and space agencies celebrated not only the technical and military achievements, but also the moral triumph. Humanity had chosen to act, to intervene, and to protect another intelligent species from annihilation. The story became a symbol of what could be accomplished when courage, intelligence, and empathy guided action. For the aliens, humanity had become an inseparable part of their story, a civilization that answered a desperate plea across the stars and fought alongside them when survival seemed impossible. In the final days, reconstruction efforts continued. Temporary shelters became permanent homes. Infrastructure was repaired, and technology that had been damaged or lost was gradually restored. Human engineers trained alien technicians in the use of advanced systems, while scientists worked with their alien counterparts to understand the planet's remaining resources and to prevent future catastrophes. Communities once fractured by fear and destruction began to rebuild, their resilience and determination a testament to the power of collaboration. Humanity's intervention had not only saved lives, but it helped lay the groundwork for a stronger, more resilient civilization capable of thriving in the universe's uncertain future as calm finally settled over the planet. Humans and aliens alike took stock of what had been accomplished. The Deathworlders had retreated, their advance halted, and the alien civilization had been preserved. The bond formed through shared struggle promised a future of cooperation, mutual respect, and shared knowledge. Humanity had proven that even in the vast, dangerous reaches of space, courage, strategy, and compassion could make a difference. The experience would be remembered as a defining moment, a story of survival, alliance, and hope against seemingly insurmountable odds. The final reflection was simple but profound, across light years of space. A cry for help had been heard, and humanity had responded with determination, courage, and compassion. The aliens had survived, the Deathworlders had been repelled, and a new chapter of interstellar relations had begun. The universe was vast and filled with dangers, but it was also a place where hope, alliance, and the power of life could prevail. Humanity's intervention had demonstrated that even the smallest actions, when guided by empathy and courage, could have consequences that reached across the stars, shaping the future of civilizations yet unknown.